Welcome to Completing Your FAFSA. Today, we're going to be talking about how to apply for financial aid, the steps to completing the FAFSA, explaining the dependency status, and a couple reminders and things to help you complete the full FAFSA process. Now, of course, FAFSA and financial aid go hand in hand along with each other. So you must complete the FAFSA in order to get financial aid, and it must be completed each year. So if you're an incoming freshman, you will complete it now, continuing on while you're in college, and those that have already been doing it, you will continue doing it each year that you are on college. In general, the new FAFSA form is usually released around the October 1st date of each year, but it could be available even later, even in a January timeframe. You can always check with your financial aid office or the studentaid.gov website to confirm when or if it is available at that time. Now, after the FAFSA is filled out, after it's processed about 3 to 5 days, you will receive what's called a student aid report, or SAR for short. And you'll want to read the first paragraph or the paragraphs that are on there, because if there's anything that needs to be fixed or if there's any errors or anything like that, that will be displayed on that particular report. Now, when you finish filling out the FAFSA form, you will see your expected family contribution, or your EFC, on the confirmation page, as well as a student aid report. And you will be able to see an estimate of federal financial aid that you might be eligible for. In the end, it's your financial aid office that is the one that will actually award you financial aid and determine your eligibility. So in the end, you will get your award offer from them, and it will be up to you to take action on that, because they'll know if you're attending full-time, part-time. Not only will they be able to determine your eligibility for federal financial aid, but also any other state or institutional aid. So you'll want to make sure that you're responding, but usually that's by logging into your student portal and accepting or declining awards. Now, the dependency status. So this FAFSA determines whether or not you're required to provide parent information, or if you can just provide your information on your own on the FAFSA. These bulleted items here list the dependency questions. So if you answer yes to any of these questions that are bulleted here, then you are an independent student and you only have to provide your information on the FAFSA. If you answer no to all of those questions that are listed here, then that means you are a dependent student and you will need to provide parental information on your FAFSA form. A common question or comments that we get from students is that students will think, oh, I file my own taxes, I'm automatically an independent student. Or students will think, I live out on my own, I'm automatically an independent student. So in general, tax filing status is not the same as the FAFSA dependency status questions. They are two completely different processes. So if you live on your own and you answer no to all of these bulleted questions, then that means you would still be a dependent student. You answer yes. So if the example is you do have a child that you support more than 50% of the time, you answer yes to that and no to all of the others, you would still be an independent student and not be required to provide parental information. Now, of course, when we're talking about your parent information, and whose information do I need to provide? So this determines at this point, whose data do I need to provide? So it only includes, you would only include biological or adoptive parents. So if you are someone where a different relative is raising you, but you consider them your parent, but they did not actually adopt you, you would not use their information on the FAFSA form. So you would provide the information only for biological or adoptive parents. If your parents are married, then you would use both of your information on there. If they are not married but living together, you would also use both. If your parent is single or widowed, of course, you would only provide that one information for that particular parent. Now, if your parents are divorced or separated, then you would provide the parent's information for the parent that you lived with the most in the prior 12 months that you are filling out the FAFSA form. Now, if you live with both parents equally, then you would provide the parent's information for that parent that provided the most support for you during the prior 12 months to filling out your FAFSA form. Now, if you answer that question and you're like, oh, yes, that was my mom, I live with my mom the most, and your parent is now remarried. So in that case, if your mom is remarried, then you must also use the step parent's information. So it would be your parent, your biological or adoptive parent, and if they are divorced or separated from your biological parent, but there is now a step parent involved, then you would include that information as well. Now, if you are an individual you are a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, but your parent is not, then this will be helpful for you. So you will still have to include parent information, even if your parent does not have a social security number. So a parent's immigration status is not taken into account in determining the student's eligibility for federal financial aid. So again, if your parent does not have a social security number, then the parent would enter all zeros for their parental data. So it'd be all zeros and then all of their other personal information. Now, if your parent doesn't have an SSN, then they will not be able to create an FSA ID because an SSN is required. Therefore, they will not be able to sign your FAFSA form electronically. So at the end of the FAFSA, you will get to the signature page and you will have the option to print it out. So you will have to print out the FAFSA form, have your parent sign it, and mail it in for processing. The mailing address for FSA, which is where you would mail it, will be listed on that signature page. So you don't have to go and look around for it. It will be directly on that page. So the mailing address and the company that you send it to will all be listed on there. Now, what is needed? We just talked about the FSA ID just slightly in the previous slide, so we want to take a deeper dive into that. So your FSA ID is a username and password combination that you would use in order to log into the Department of Education's online system. So if you are filling out the FAFSA form as an independent student, then you will have to make sure that you have an FSA ID for yourself. That FSA ID would be basically using your social security number and your personal information when setting that up. You would use that to log into the website and electronically sign your FAFSA form. If you are a dependent student, and we're talking about the FSA ID, you as a student would need your FSA ID, and then your parent, only one of your parents would need their FSA ID. So your parent will have to set up their own FSA ID using their own social security number. And their personal information on there as well. And they would need that in order to electronically sign their FAFSA. If you are an individual, your parent doesn't have an SSN, then you don't have to worry about getting that FSA ID. Now, what also is needed is the tax return. So for when you're filling out the 23-24 FAFSA, then you would need to use your 2021 taxes and W-2s. If you are an independent student and you are married, then you will need the tax information for your spouse and W-2 information for you and your spouse as well. Now, in general, for both independent and dependent students, if you're on the dependent student side, then you will need your tax information, 2021 taxes and W-2s as the student, and then you will also need your parent tax data as well. Both for independent and dependent students, you will have the option, if you meet the requirements that are listed on there, to use the IRS data retrieval tool, which basically it makes filling out the FAFSA a lot simpler and easier because it will pull the tax questions directly down from the IRS. So it allows you, it's basically less errors, so you don't miss a number when you're transferring it from your tax data onto the application. So if you have the option to use the IRS data retrieval tool, you will definitely want to use that option. Now, a lot of questions ask, Well, my parents don't want to provide my taxes to me. They don't want to see how much they make. They want to do it on their own, or they're in different locations. I'm here, my parent lives somewhere else. They want to log in and do it on their own. So if you're someone that is in that situation, that's okay. There is an option for you. So this screen basically allows you, so if you're going to go in and fill out the FAFSA on your own and input your parent information, you and your parent, if you're a dependent student, are together, doing it together, or you're just an independent student, then you would choose that first option. I'm a student and want to access the FAFSA form, and you complete everything there. You are a dependent student where your parent wants to do their portion all on their own, or they're at a different location and want to enter it in on their own, then your parent can select that second option that says, I'm a parent filling out a FAFSA form for a student, and then they will have to provide their information there. Now, when you get to the FAFSA, there will be a question about household size. Now, one thing about the household size is the FAFSA will automatically add you as a student. And then if you had said that you're married, your spouse is in there. And then if you are a dependent student and you indicated whether or not your parent is married, those will automatically be included in your household size. It will then ask you another question, though. It will ask if you have any other dependents. So if you're on the independent side, any children that you support or any dependents that you support. So those will be separate questions on there. And on the dependent student side, it will ask if you have any siblings that you have that your parents are supporting, or any other dependent students or any other dependents in general that your parents are supporting. So you will see those questions on there. So you want to answer them accordingly. So on the dependent side, there's other siblings that you have that your parents are supporting, then you would put in those questions. So if you have 2 other siblings and it asks how many other siblings do your parents support, then you would put 2 in there, and it'll automatically add on to you and your parents that were previously answered. One thing to keep in mind, if you are a college student who is already in college and you have a younger sibling that is a high school student, but they're a graduating senior, there will be a question in general that asks, out of any of those dependents, whether it's siblings or children or dependents, how many of them will be in college? And so you want to make sure to include any of your siblings or dependents that are in college, or those that might be entering college for the 23-24 school year. So remember to include, any siblings or dependents that are maybe high school students now will be entering college for the 23-24 school year. Now, if your parents are divorced or separated, of course, you're going to be using that parent that you live with the most or provided more than half support when you're thinking about the household size, and using that particular parent's information of those that support any other siblings or dependents. Now, things to remember for the FAFSA. When you go through the FAFSA, you will have a renew my FAFSA form option. If you have filled out a FAFSA form in the past, it would be best to select that option, because then it will pull in a lot of your prior demographic information. A lot of your personal information will automatically come from your previous FAFSA you filled out to the current one. So it would allow you to bypass and require you to, or allow you to skip over some of the questions that were already filled out in the past, and mainly focus on the income information. So if you have that option, I would highly recommend filling that, just to expedite and make the filling out the FAFSA a lot faster. Now, when you're filling out the FAFSA, you want to be sure to include any schools that you may be attending in that next school year. So, of course, if you are somebody that will be transferring schools maybe mid-semester, then you would want to include the school that you're attending currently, and then the school that you will be transferring to. So especially for those that might be maybe graduating from a community college, maybe at the end of fall, and then for spring, you'll be going to a 4-year school, then you want to make sure that you include both schools, because if you're at a community college, you want to have them on there for that fall semester. And then if you're going to a 4-year, then you'll want to include that other school on there as well. So be sure to list any schools. If you're not sure yet, you're filling out the FAFSA, you're not sure what which school you're if you're attending. That doesn't mean waiting on fill out the FAFSA. No, you can list up to 10 schools on your FAFSA form. So you can include all of those that you're thinking about, and then you can decide which school you're going to actually attend at a later point in time. As stated earlier, the data retrieval tool is an option that you may have to electronically transfer your tax return data directly onto the FAFSA. So if you fill out the questions about whether or not you've already filled out or completed your tax return, and you have the option to use the data retrieval tool, highly recommend for you to do that. Once you get to the end of the FAFSA, you will have a summary page. Be sure to review that and make sure that all the questions that you answered were answered correctly. So make sure you're reviewing that. Once you get past the summary page, the last step would be to electronically sign your FAFSA. As an independent student, then only you have to electronically sign your form using your FSA ID. If you are a dependent student, then you as a student have to electronically sign, and then your parent would need their FSA ID in order to electronically sign as well. Now, once the FAFSA is submitted, you will receive a confirmation page. On the confirmation page, it will show your EFC, which is your expected family contribution, and will also give you an overview of what type of federal financial aid you may receive. But in the end, you want to make sure that you remember that it's up to the financial aid office to actually award you. So just because there is an amount listed there does not automatically guarantee that you are going to be receiving that amount, because again, that depends on how many classes, credit hours that you're taking, and just your eligibility across the board. So that just gives you a general idea, but it's actually the financial aid office that will award you your actual awards, whether it be grants, loans, or any of those other type of aid options. The studentaid.gov website is where you would go to fill out the FAFSA form. If you have any issues with your FSA ID or your parent has issues, then you can always call the federal student aid number, which is listed here, and these are their office hours. So if at any time you have questions or issues filling out your FAFSA, then this is resourceful information that you can use. Thank you for joining our presentation today on completing your FAFSA. We hope this was helpful to you.